The Australian Open has started, Dan.
Yes.
It's in full swing. It's very exciting.
Yes.
We've got two Demonor discussions. A lot has happened.
Yes.
Djokovic is still going crazy.
Yeah.
But let's start with the beginning, the thing that people care about most. How are the Aussies going?
Yeah, so John, obviously we last convened after day one. We're now at the end of day four, at the start of day five. So what I'll do, John, I'll take you through the results. It might take me a little bit of time.
Yep.
But I'll start with the men, John, and I'll start with Monday's results. So Aussie James Duckworth lost to Luca Van Asch of France. So that one was a long five-setter, John.
Yep.
Unfortunate that Duckworth went out. Alexei Popyrin, he beat fellow Aussie Mark Polmans in the first round in straight sets. We'll get to his other results in a little bit, John. Some other Aussie results from Monday. Alexander Vukic lost to fellow Aussie Jordan Thompson. That one was also a five-setter. Rinky Hijikata, unfortunately, he went out as well. John lost to Jan Leonard Struff of Germany. Another five-setter, John. A lot of five-setters in this tournament, which is great. You want to see good competition, absolutely. Omar Jasica, he went out the qualifier, lost to Hubert Hurkacz of Poland, the number 9 seed. That was a straight setter. Alex de Minaur, our favourite Alex de Minaur, beat Milos Raonic in that round one match that we were a bit iffy about, John.
I wouldn't really say he beat him.
He was sort of handed the victory there early in the third set. It was one set all. De Minaur led 2-love in the third, and Raonic couldn't continue. Injuries continue to be a huge problem for Raonic, unfortunately. James McCabe, a wildcard Aussie, he lost to Alex Michelson of the USA in 4 sets. It was 4 sets, that one. Max Purcell beat Mate Valkuc, I think, of Hungary. That was a 4-setter. Those last 2 results I read out were Tuesday results, actually, John. And Tanasi Kokkinakis, this was a big result that was very popular with a lot of people. Beat Sebastian Offner in that epic first-round clash on Tuesday evening. Yet another 5-setter, Kokkinakis winning 10-8 in that match tiebreaker there, John. Okay, now I'm going to move to the Wednesday results, John, that we've just seen yesterday. So Alex de Minaur, he's into the third round. He beat Matteo Arnaldi in straight sets.
That was a smashing.
Yeah, absolutely obliterated.
Arnaldi was never in it.
Yeah, unfortunately, Chris O'Connell's gone out, though, Johnny. Lost to Ben Shelton of the USA in 4 sets. Disappointing.
O'Connell never looked like he was in that match either. Shelton was just way too good for him.
Yeah, disappointing. I'll tell you who was in the match, though, John. Jordan Thompson against Stefanos Tsitsipas.
Yeah, I was watching that last night.
Won the first set. Unfortunately, went down in 4, but Tsitsipas won 2 tie-break sets, so a very close match, that one.
So that one I was watching, and it seemed like any time there was a rally, Tsitsipas couldn't handle it. And so if he was getting the points over quickly, he would win. But if Thompson got a few returns and then it started getting big, Tsitsipas would do an unforced error. It was a really exciting match.
Yeah, so well done to Jordan Thompson. Knocked out by Stefanos Tsitsipas, but he's the number 7 seed, so no shame in that at all. One of the best players in the world, obviously. And John, our friend Novak Djokovic, unfortunately knocked Alexei Popyrin, the Aussie, out in 4 sets, John. And I will get to it in a little bit, but in that third set, at 1 set all, Popyrin was up 4-5 on Djokovic's serve, love 40. So Popyrin had 3 set points. And I thought, here we go, we're on here. He could take a 2-1 lead. And then, sure enough, Djokovic finds a way to come back and level at 5. Well, at that point, I turned the TV off, John. I thought, I've seen this movie before. It's like the tennis version of Shawshank Redemption. Djokovic just coming back and winning from that position.
So his wrist is really troubling him at the moment.
Yes, he's having some problems, and I think that's a combined 7 hours on court for 2 matches. Yeah. He's used up a lot of petrol for 2 matches, so...
both in matches that he was supposed to win easily, he has spent a lot of time on the court, and he brought it up before the Australian Open, and along with Nick Kyrgios, the one time they've ever agreed with each other. The one time Nick Kyrgios has ever agreed with anyone, that the balls are going to cause wrist injuries, and Djokovic, from what I understand, has been struggling a lot with his wrist, and during that match, he kept squeezing it and rubbing it and massaging it and stuff like that. So hopefully he can power through it, because, you want to see the best in the world play. Also, hopefully he can't power through it and has to withdraw injured. Because you don't want to...
Tell us what you really think, John.
Because you want to see Djokovic get knocked out.
So, John, those are the results, the Aussie men thus far. A couple of matches to come today, recording Thursday morning. These are the Thursday matches. So Max Purcell's got a tough one. He takes on Casper Ruud of Norway, the 11th seed. Casper Ruud, obviously a former French Open finalist. I think he lost to Nadal in the French Open final in 2022.
Let's see if we can get some odds on that.
So, while you're looking that up, John, I'll just run through a bit more information here. So, a tough one for Thanasi Kokkinakis today as well, John. He takes on 13th seed Bulgarian Grigor Dimitrov, who's in fine form. So, no easy task for Thanasi there. John, sorry.
Casper Ruud is paying $1.14 to Max Purcell's $5.25.
Yeah, there you go.
Let me see if I can find... Do you know what time Kokkinakis is on?
Well, it says here, John, that it is on at 4 p.m, but I guess that's just indicative because
there it is.
They don't know.
Dimitrov's paying $1.11 to Tom Kokkinakis is $6.
Yeah, there you go.
Bet with your head not over it. Free and confidential support. Contact gamblinghelponline.com.org.au.
Yeah, so there you go, John.
Those odds do tell a story in that.
Please don't take the time of 4 p.m. as gospel for that. It's best to just to look at the schedule and look at where it is on the schedule, because that start time could certainly change.
Yeah, definitely.
So, John, just to summarise the men, so the Aussie men left in the draw. Alex de Minaur, of course.
Yep.
He'll now play Flavio Caboli. So you'd think de Minaur will get through that one, John, but we always thought if he got through Raonic in the first round that he's got a pretty clear path to
look at those odds, $1.06 for Alex, and $8 for Flavio.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, so Max Purcell, as I just mentioned, he plays Casper Ruud today, so obviously he's still in at the moment, John. And Thanasi Kokkinakis, the only other Aussie left. So 3 Aussie men left, John. So a lot of them have gone out, unfortunately, but we've still got 3 Aussies in the men flying the flag.
By the way, I've just seen this. Tomorrow, Sinner is playing Sebastian Baez. The odds are, Sinner, 1.004.
0.004?
Yes.
Oh, wow.
So he's paying $1 and a fourth of a cent.
Oh, wow. So if I put $1 on that, do I get back one?
You get back $1. You get back $1 because it rounds down. Wow. So, yeah.
I wouldn't be touching that one.
No,
then, John. Okay, John, I'm happy to run through the women now. So let's go back to Monday here with the women. So, unfortunately, Aussie wildcard Taylor Preston went out to Alina Svitolina, the 19th seed from the Ukraine. That was in straight sets. Storm Hunter having a good run, John. She beat Sara Errani of Italy in straight sets on Monday as well. Unfortunately, you put this one in the notes too, John. Unfortunately, Daria Saville went out, lost to Magdalena Fresh of Poland. And so that as you put on the rundown, John, that leaves Arena Rodionova feeling pretty hard done by, given that Saville...
She took her spot.
Well, Rodionova's ranked 104, Saville 152, and that's only after she went up 43 spots. So Saville was ranked 195 when they made that decision. So Rodionova can feel pretty hard done by, I would have thought there, John. Olivia Gadecki, Aussie wildcard, lost to the very good American player Sloane Stephens, John. That one was done in straight sets. That was on Tuesday. Yelena Ostapenko of Latvia beat Kimberly Birrell of Australia in straight sets. And also on Tuesday, Isla Tomljanovic beat Petra Martic of Croatia. That was in 3. That was a great comeback from Tomljanovic. She was down 4-1 in the third set there, John. Won 5 games in a row to win that third set 6-4. So well done, Isla. Great effort. Great comeback there. Sensational.
So who do you know who she'll play?
Yeah, so I'll get to that in 1 second, John. Yeah, so and on yesterday, Storm Hunter beat Laura Siegemund of Germany in 3 sets. So Storm Hunter into the third round. Great effort from her. And yes, I was getting to it, John. So Tomljanovic will tonight play against Yelena Ostapenko. And there's bad blood between these two, John. It's a grudge match. They've got a checkered history. So that's a very, very spicy encounter, that one. We can very much look forward to that.
So Ostapenko's paying $1.80 to Tomljanovic's $4.40.
Yeah, Tomljanovic, though, I wouldn't worry too much about her ranking. She's certainly capable on her day.
Yeah, definitely.
Remembering she was the one who ended Serena Williams' career in 2022 at that US Open. So, Tomljanovic certainly a chance there against Ostapenko. John, fingers crossed she can get through that. Storm
Hunter will play.
Yeah, you might just.
Barbara Krejcikova.
Yeah. So that will be
tomorrow.
Yeah, so
and
we don't have the scheduling of that locked in, but we know who she's going to play.
Yeah, so it's at 11 a.m. Well, every match is at 11 a.m.
They haven't set the schedule.
But Storm Hunter's paying $4 to.
Yeah, they usually do
Barbara's.
the schedule, I think, about 6 p.m. the day before. So, so John, in terms of the Aussie women, that just leaves Tomljanovic and Storm Hunter. They're the only two left, so fingers crossed they can keep it going for a bit longer.
Paying $4. Storm Hunter's paying $4 to Barbara Krejcikova's $1.22. I think no matter what happens, the Aussie women will definitely not be favourites. They'll definitely be the underdogs in every match. Mm-hmm. But I think those odds are close enough to tell you that possibly both of them could win. It'll just depend on what happens on the day.
So good luck to all those Australians left in the draw, John. Alex Demon or Max Purcell, Tanasi Kokonakis, Isla Tomljanovic and Storm Hunter. Yeah. Fingers crossed that they can keep it going for a while longer. John,
I hope so.
Push into that second week.
So that's it for the Aussies.
Yes,
we've got a few left, but what I noticed was a lot of big names have been dropped out, and it's kind of dictating to me that there's a little bit of a changing of the guard in the tennis world. So, just in the first 2 days, I put this together yesterday. Francis Tiafoe knocked out by Czech player Thomas Maček.
Is it Martin? Oh, sorry,
Thomas. I don't know.
Thomas Martin Echeverry, yeah.
Yeah, that was Andy Murray was gone to Thomas Martin Echeverry. Mm-hmm. Dominic Thiem, beaten by Felix Olga Aliassime in 5 sets. Naomi Osaka, who, of course, is like very low on the rankings, but she has won 4 Grand Slams before. Yep. She's coming back from a pregnancy 6 months ago.
A little news item on that a bit later too.
Lost in straight sets to Caroline Garcia, who's ranked 19th in the world. Mm-hmm. Stan Wawrinka, out. Gone home, lost to 20th seed Adrian Mannarino.
Yep, he won this event 10 years ago. John won it in 2014.
Former world number 1, current world number 252, Caroline Wozniacki, out to Maria Timofeeva. And Ons Jabeur, who, she's in the middle of the road, currently ranked 47, but was previously, ranked 3rd in the world.
Yep.
Absolutely destroyed by 16-year-old Mira Andreeva, who's currently ranked 6 love 6-2. Absolutely destroyed.
Well
I watched
done,
the highlights.
16 years old, and beating a player of Ons Jabeur's quality. That's very impressive.
Yeah, so I think there is actually, a real changing of the guard now in tennis where a lot of those players that were the big names are no longer the big names and getting knocked out in the first round of the Australian Open. Mm-hmm. And we're going to have to see what happens now because there's a lot of super young players, like 16 years old, coming through and beating these former greats. Unfortunately, Andy Murray has now basically said he's going to retire for the second time.
Yeah, I mean, I would have thought... I thought he was retiring 5 years ago, John.
He did retire once before.
He retired about 5 years ago, and he's still...
And he came back. Happens sometimes with sports stars, they retire and realise they have nothing in their life. And so I think the only thing they can do is come back, which is never a good idea. You know, Khabib Nurmagomedov said it best: "You don't peak twice." You know, so don't come back. You've peaked once, and that's it. You know, you were the best. You were fourth best in the world, Andy Murray.
It's hard to think of. You know, the only comeback in sport that I can think of that really has worked was Alan Langer coming back in State of Origin when he came back from England. Yeah. There's a lot of other examples of comebacks that just haven't worked. Tony Lockett came back for the Sydney Swans a couple of years. I think he retired originally in 1999, came back in 2002, was not the same player. Yeah. Ian Thorpe retired from swimming at a very young age in about 2006, came back for the 2012 London Olympics, was not the same swimmer. So comebacks, they rarely work, John. That's why it's never really a good idea. Once you're done, you're pretty much done. But like you said, the problem is for these guys, and obviously someone like Andy Murray, he's got all the money in the world. He'll never need to work another day in his life. But you can't just sit around counting your money all day, can you? You've got to be productive with your time. And someone like Andy Murray, well, he's not going to know himself without tennis. Yeah. He's not going to know how to be productive with his time.
That's because when you're a professional sportsman, the sport becomes your whole life. There's nothing else. A lot of them put lives on hold, you know, like they don't get married, they don't have children, they don't, you know, and then they finish and they realize like they have actually wasted their youth, and so they have nothing and then try to go back to the sport because that was all they had, and it's never a good idea. Like honestly, it's never good. Even Alan Langer, he came back from England, he was at least still playing, so he was in a professional sporting environment, whereas guys like Andy Murray, who disappeared for a few years and then tries to come back, he hasn't been in that professional, high-level, intense, sporting world and then trying to re-enter it at you don't see debuts at 40 years old, you know?
Yeah, exactly. I think it was the great Shane Warne who, and him of all people, had a very well-timed retirement. Retired after Australia won back the Ashes in 2006-07. in a 5-0 whitewash of England, and he said, you always go with a bit left. You don't want to go on too long when you're past it. And I think he was spot on, John. Yeah,
it's 100%. You should always go out on top. Go the Seinfeld way, you know? Always go out on top.
Yeah. Like when George says, when George has a good line and then he says, all right, I'm leaving, he walks out.
That's it. Like, go out on top, you know? And then don't keep trying. And it really affects your legacy as well. You know, in combat sports, Anderson Silva was the GOAT. He was the greatest of all time. You watch prime Anderson Silva, and it is ridiculous. He's literally in the Matrix, you know, the way he slips punches and stuff like that. There's a really funny interview when he fought Forrest Griffin. And afterwards, like, it was for a title, and Forrest Griffin is on the radio, and they ask him what it's like to fight Anderson Silva, and he said, I tried to hit that guy, and he looked at me like with a look that said, what are you doing here, you idiot? And then beat the crap out of me, you know? Like, that's what it was like to watch Anderson Silva. But then he broke his leg, snapped his leg, and then tried to come back. And there's a lot of young people. I think his last fight was against Israel Adesanya or something, right? Like 3 years ago. A lot of people who are just coming to the sport will have seen Anderson Silva lose 3 or 4 fights and think he's not good, but you have to go back and watch. Just the way he moved was ridiculous. And so, you want to go out on top because it tarnishes your legacy. Unfortunately, for even the other day I was saying Andy Murray was like the 4th best in the world. He never won anything, but he was the 4th best in the world. And now what will be remembered by especially new tennis fans is like he was just an old dude who got beat in everything he played in.
Yeah, I mean, he won 3 majors and he played in 11 Grand Slam finals, John. So he didn't have a good conversion rate, did he? 3 from 11, but still he won 3 majors. But you're right. I mean, a lot of recent tennis fans, a lot of young people are just not going to know Andy Murray as one of those genuine contenders. Yeah. They're going to know him as, a player sort of ranked about, between 50 and 100 in the world. I think he should have just retired 5 years ago when he originally said he would, John.
Yeah, 100%. So we can move along to... but it is like, I see a changing of the guard, and I hope some some new players can come through that can get to that, like, transcend the sport kind of level that we always talk about. They need to transcend the sport and be popular amongst people that don't watch tennis, that are on the cusp or like only like to watch Roger Federer matches. There's not a lot of them right now because I think Alcaraz has a lot of potential to be that guy. He's very well spoken. He's kind of like because he's Spanish as well. People compare him to Nadal. A little bit racist, guys.
We got to be careful.
But I hope there's some new guys that come through that can transcend the sport, especially because these older guys, older guys are kind of like losing that level now and being dropped out. Like Stan Wawrinka was another one. Like people knew who Stan Wawrinka was because he did win that. It was Australia Open, yeah.
Yeah, I mean he won the Australian in 2014. He also won the French Open 1 year, and he won the US Open 1 year as well.
And so he was another one where everyone was like, he's like the mini Roger Federer, even though they play nothing alike.
And the problem for him was whenever he played Federer just owned him.
Yeah.
It's that big brother, little brother syndrome
100%.
of being from the same country. And
they did a lot of training together and stuff, and they played doubles and stuff together too.
They actually won the Davis Cup 1 year, those two, when they were together. And
but see,
I actually think they had a bit of a falling out, and it involved Federer's wife.
Yeah. But the people knew who Stan Wawrinka was because of those links to Federer. Like the people who are in the middle of the tennis crew, like will kind of knew who Stan Wawrinka was. But I don't really see a lot of players right now that are like that. And I hope some of these young guys that are destroying the old guard can come through and become those kind of players. Not even players, but like personalities that can attract non-tennis fans to tennis.
Yeah, I mean, I know Djokovic has won this event 10 times, John, and I know he's the overwhelming favourite, but you saw that there's 7 hours to get through the first two matches. I'm really looking at three players at the moment, John. I'm looking at Yannick Sinner. Mm-hmm. He's had a good recent record against Djokovic. Darren Cahill could be the best coach in the game. John, he's working with Yannick Sinner at the moment, so watch out for Yannick Sinner. I'm also obviously looking at Alcaraz, John. He was the only one to beat Djokovic in a major last year, and it was in a major final. There's not many players who can claim to have beaten Djokovic in a major final. He did that at Wimbledon last year, so all eyes are on Alcaraz.
Yeah.
And another one, Daniil Medvedev, beat Djokovic in the 2021 US Open final, denied him that calendar year Grand Slam that year. There's three players there who I'd be watching out for here, John. I think they might be ready to make a challenge on Djokovic at this event. So
it's just a quick odds on that. Novak is obviously playing $2.20.
Yeah.
Next highest is Alcaraz at $4.20.
Yeah.
And then Yannick Sinner is $6.
Does it have odds for Medvedev there too?
Medvedev is 10.
So I think there's some value. Obviously, gamble responsibly, but there is some value there for a Sinner, Alcaraz or a Medvedev, I think, John, at the moment.
And, Alex de Minaur is actually sixth favourite at $29.
Right, okay.
Which is a big jump.
But I mean, look, Alex has done well so far, John. But, the test is going to come in that fourth round when he's most likely going to play against Rublev.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Where is it? Rublev has no chance to win, apparently.
So they haven't got Rublev anywhere there. Oh, there he is.
Oh, God, yeah, so he's paying $56.
Yeah, geez,
do they actually think de Minaur's going to... Look, de Minaur's looking good, man. Like, it's that tenacity. When in that match against Milos Raonic, actually, the first set, I thought the serve was going to get him, to be honest. And then it was just injury that... Because there was a serve in that was like 224 or something that looked ridiculous.
That's the thing, John, but that match sort of went how we thought it would, didn't it? We thought his serve was going to be an issue. It was in the first set. Raonic won it in a tiebreaker. But then we thought, well, as it wears on, the fact that de Minaur's played a lot more tennis than Raonic, who's had terrible trouble with injuries in recent years, John. And it just caught up with Raonic being underdone, and he just couldn't even get through the third set there, John.
And because in that first set, his serve was just, that was it. It was
that's the
Demon's in trouble here.
That's the problem playing against a player like that. They take the racket out of your hand. There's only so much you can do. You only get a few half chances, and you got to take them. But thankfully for Demon, Raonic couldn't get through the match, and he got the free pass through that he needed.
And so he'll get up to round four. He should win this.
Yeah, I mean he'll beat that Kaboli.
100%.
But yeah, that Rublev match, assuming it goes ahead, assuming they both progress, will be interesting.
Yeah. But overnight, Novak Djokovic's match against Popyrin happened, and once again, the crowd's giving it to him, and he's not really happy. Unfortunately, he's doing the exact opposite of our advice. Stop responding.
Yes. He certainly responded, John. He was heard yelling at a fan and said, and I quote, "Come here and say it to my face." A fan seated behind him at Rod Laver Arena. And then Djokovic yelled again, come here, in a loud voice. And then he was asked, well, what did this spectator say to him in the post-match press conference? And he said, and I quote, Djokovic said, I mean, you don't want to know what he said.
Yeah.
So he wouldn't be drawn on it in the post-match press conference.
So it sounds like the guy said something personal and insulting. And my understanding is as soon as Djokovic turned around and said, come here and say it to my face, the person who screamed at him started apologising. Once again, a person trying to hide behind anonymity in the crowd, doing personal insults like an absolute coward, gets confronted and backs away.
Yeah.
I mean, Djokovic obviously needs to ignore the crowd, but also the crowd shouldn't be saying things that make Djokovic say, I don't want to repeat what it was. You know? If you want to yell out, if you want to sledge a player, you don't have to get personal. Like, that's the thing.
Yeah, a few points to make. This person in the crowd obviously is a drop kick. John.
Yeah, 100%.
But if Djokovic is reacting, well, he's bringing himself down to their level as well. And we've also got this issue with Djokovic again where you go, all right, you want to react to the crowd and yell at them, okay. But don't try and pretend to be the well-liked guy as well. If you want to play the villain, that's fine. But own it and stop trying to be well-liked all the time.
So he did another charity thing that I saw on the internet last night, which was with wheelchair tennis. So he played against the, I think, number one in the world in wheelchair tennis in a doubles match.
He's done that a few times in the past. Yeah.
And the internet immediately went, you know, because it was like laughing, there was jokes and stuff like that. The internet immediately went on the attack against Djokovic, going on about how, like, he shouldn't be making fun of someone in a wheelchair and stuff like that. Now, the intention was to show that actually wheelchair tennis, just because the world's best tennis player, like basically best tennis player ever, can play tennis, doesn't mean he can convert his game into wheelchair tennis. It's a very different game. Yeah. And he, like, sucked, and that was what he was joking about. Please don't hit it to me. I suck. But the internet immediately went the other way and said, oh, look at this guy, typical Djokovic, making fun of people with disabilities, like... That's what he is. That's what's going to happen, and it's just too bad. And yeah, like, he should stop trying. Actually, like we've said it before, we said it the other day. Just stop trying, man. Like, and definitely don't react to the crowd.
It's these continued attempts to improve his image that continue to backfire on him.
Yeah. He needs to get Roxy Jasenko on his payroll. He needs better PR.
But, John, so how much... Is it fair to say that he is one of the most disliked sports people in Australia? I'd say
yeah, 100%.
He's up there. I don't know who the most disliked sports personality in Australia is, but he's in the conversation. He's definitely in the top 5 if he's not at number 1.
I can't think of anyone who we as a entire country hate more in sports. So
he's probably the most disliked sporting...
There are other guys that, like... So, you know, the government tried to get Sean Strickland hated because... Well, not the government, but people tried to get Sean Strickland hated because he says sexist comments, but most people just laughed it off because Sean Strickland is a GTA character, right? Yeah. So people don't hate Sean Strickland even though he says sexist and racist comments because he's just a GTA character. There's Djokovic. People hate... You know, Conor McGregor, everybody hates Conor McGregor. People hate... See, I can't even think of very many, you know. But Djokovic, if you ask anybody on the street who's your most hated sports person across all sports, I would hazard a guess that number one would be Djokovic in Australia.
And how much of that is to do with the fact that he tries so hard to be liked? I think a lot of it is 100%. To do with that alone.
Australians
wanting to be liked, people see through it and they go, well, this guy's just a tryhard.
Yeah, Australians especially are like that, you know. They want people who are naturally nice, not trying to be nice. Dave Warner is another one that people hate, but he'd get nowhere near as much hate as Djokovic. Dave Warner's mainly hated amongst cricket fans, you know, whereas people who would never have watched a day of tennis in their life would probably dislike Novak Djokovic.
Yeah. I mean, he does give us something to talk about on a daily basis.
And tennis is a year-round sport, so it's good.
There's never a dull moment with Novak at all.
Moving right along,
yes.
There's some issues around Alexander. I knew this was going to come up. Alexander Zverev has been accused of domestic violence.
Yeah, so he's facing domestic abuse charges from his ex-girlfriend, which were filed in November of 2023. He's going to undergo an 8-day trial starting on May 31 this year, John. So what's happened, John, is Russian female player Daria Kasatkina, she's hit back at a fan who said that they would rather watch Alexander Zverev live over non-Australian female players. This came after Kasatkina, she'd voiced her displeasure on social media at Channel 9 for not showing Jelena Rybakina's match on Rod Laver Arena the other night. And they instead showed Thanasi Kokkinakis' first round clash. And I think Alexander Zverev was also playing at the same time. So they had Kokkinakis on one channel, Channel 9, and they had Zverev on another channel, and that's riled up Kasatkina. And so in response to this fan, Kasatkina said, and I quote, on X, now known as X under Elon's watch job, says, if you're a female, then I would advise you to make a research. Obviously, maybe her English is not great. Make a research about the guy you want to watch and think again, Kasatkina wrote on Twitter, known as X now. So that's the situation, John. She's blown up and clearly she's, I guess, not happy that Zverev's got this exposure over Rybakina, and she's brought in his domestic violence
and he's
charges that are going to be played out in court.
He's also been asked about it in a press conference and had an argument with a journalist about it.
Yes, he did, yes.
It was quite a back and forth where he's, basically said, you don't know what you're talking about. And, we all always go back to, on this podcast, we believe innocent until proven guilty. I think Kasatkina has a point, not because of the domestic violence allegations, but in that Rod Laver Arena is the number one tennis arena in Australia. So if the Australian Open thinks that Rod Laver Arena, they should put these people on Rod Laver Arena over these people, you would think that the coverage would follow that too, to be honest.
Yes.
This is the most important match of this day, this time. This is the biggest match of the time, because there's a lot of matches going on every day at the same time. So it's just whatever time it was. 7 p.m, this is the match on Rod Laver Arena that is most packed, that we think is the most important. And Channel 9's gone, we'll show Zverev instead. There's a disconnect there between the Australian Open organisers and the broadcast.
Yes.
Kokkinakis is an Australian, so Australian channels are always going to show Australians, although the other day they did cut from O'Connell to Djokovic, again. But that's actually like counterpoint, Djokovic was on Rod Laver. So there's a disconnect there.
One other point that I'd make, though, a bit of a counterpoint to that, John, was that what also happened on Tuesday night it was. So Isla Tomljanovic was playing against Petra Martic in that first round match she had, which she did really well to come back and win. And so at that same time, Carlos Alcaraz was playing against Richard Gasquet. and that was on centre court, the Alcaraz-Gasquet match. Now, Alcaraz won Wimbledon last year. So, and Alcaraz is a 2-time major winner. That match between Alcaraz and Gasquet, to be honest, John, as an avid tennis follower, I thought that would have been on the main channel ahead of Tomljanovic. But Gasquet and Alcaraz was relegated to 9 while Tomljanovic was on the main channel. Now, I know they were both televised. But it is, if you're watching it on Foxtel, John, it's a bit of a hassle to get over to Gem. You've got to change it to your digital TV. It is a pain to get over to Gem. So that's sort of my counterpoint to what you've said, is that, well, there's an example there of, they're clearly... And I like Isla Tomljanovic, don't get me wrong, I really do, especially after she ended Serena Williams' career. But there's a bit of a counterpoint to you, an example of, well, Alcaraz is the Wimbledon champion. He couldn't get on the main channel, and Tomljanovic had top billing.
That just shows a further disconnect. I would think that Rod Laver Arena, whoever's on there, would be on the main channel, because Rod Laver Arena is the main stadium. Okay, so when the Australian Open organisers sit down and go, where is everyone playing, right? They don't go, it's not random, it's not a full random thing. They go, Rod Laver Arena, biggest match of the time, because it's not of the round or whatever, it's of the time. So we can go 7 p.m, biggest match of the time, 7 p.m, Rod Laver Arena. We go through and we look at who's playing at 7 p.m. Alcaraz is the biggest match. That's what the people who bought tickets and go there want to watch, so that goes there. So that should then go on the main channel, Channel 9, right? The main channel. Then the sub-channel is, there's an Australian also playing, we should play that,
Yeah. So in that instance, Tomljanovic probably should have been on Gem.
Yeah, I think so.
Gasquet as the centre court match on the main channel. So there's a disconnect between the organisers and the broadcasters.
Yeah.
But maybe it's not gender related, as Kazatkina is suggesting, because I've just given you an instance.
Exactly.
Where
I think it's just the broadcasters are so not used to tennis, actually, that they don't know what they should be doing.
And Channel 9 are new to tennis, relatively new. They've only been doing it for 5 or 6 years. And and it really shows, John.
Yeah.
A lot of their coverage it's just amateur hour. So it's more of an issue about Channel 9 than it is about gender.
And I don't think it's sexist. And look, Channel 9 and the Australian Open organisers need to worry about ratings and things like that and who they think will get the ratings. But the Australian Open organisers or the tennis organisers, one channel, like that. That's what it seems like to me. It should be.
I don't think Channel 9 are being sexist. No. I mean, why would they be? They just want ratings.
Yeah, exactly.
So whatever rates the best, they'll put that on. They're not sitting there going, we're going to put men on over women. They're sitting there going, we're going to put the match on that we think will rate the best. Unfortunately,
a lot of the time the men will rate higher than the women. Like, that's just a fact of life. They also have to take into account length. Yeah, length is a big thing in tennis, right? You get broadcasters. Advertisers are going to want to go, I want to be on a man match because it's going to go longer and I get more ads that way. Yeah. You've also got to take that into account. I think it's really easy for people in today's day and age to jump to sexism, bigotry, racism, everything, just to get a soundbite, to get podcasts and news media to talk about it and things like that. I don't think that Channel 9, like you said, is sitting there going, we better put some men on because men are better than women in every regard. Yeah. And I don't think that anybody should be questioning Alexander Zverev about his domestic violence allegations.
Yeah, it's still got to be played out in court.
Until after May?
Yeah, May. That's when his court appearance is. And, the Tomljanovic situation, her match being shown ahead of Alcaraz's match, well, that's an example of the broadcaster going, well, we think, obviously Channel 9 in that instance felt like Tomljanovic was going to get better ratings than Alcaraz.
Yeah,
that's why they put her on. I mean, they could be right, John, but it just shows that it's not sexist. It's not sexism.
And that kind of thing will be ignored by people who want to jump on the bigotry wagon. They'll ignore the examples that you present. You could go through and find probably dozens of them over the last 4 days in which a female match was on the main channel. But they'll ignore that. People will ignore that and just go, but it's sexist because Alcaraz and Medvedev. Zverev. Yeah. Anyway, We did touch on Naomi Osaka returning from having a baby 6 months ago, but Martina Navratilova is not happy with it.
So Martina Navratilova's had a go at Naomi Osaka. So, it was on Monday night, first round. Osaka went down in straight sets to French 16th seed Caroline Garcia, as you mentioned earlier, John. So, Navratilova's had a bit of a go at Osaka's fitness levels. She says tennis-wise it was maybe a B-plus performance, but overall a C because she couldn't get to the ball. She's not in shape, Navratilova said about Osaka. Now,
I feel like I'm in that episode of South Park that's about stem cell research. That's Cartman's all involved in the stem cells, and all the other kids, every time it flashes to them, they're like, I'm not touching that. I'm not touching that. They're playing with trucks instead. I know multiple examples in sports of women returning from having a baby and not being good in their first return, actually. But I can't comment on whether Naomi Osaka felt she was ready, what her fitness levels were, and whether it was actually having the baby. I wouldn't have a clue.
I'll tell you what, though, John. Martina Navratilova can get away with saying that. Yeah. If a male commentator...
100%. That's what I mean. I feel like South Park, man.
Would not be allowed to say what Martina Navratilova said about Naomi Osaka, and if they did, they'd be cancelled in a heartbeat.
That's why the UFC is really good, because when Mackenzie Dern, who was like... Mackenzie Dern is like a 6-time world champion in jiu-jitsu, transitioned to MMA, won a whole bunch of matches, was going to push for the title, went and had a baby and came back. And... she was terrible in her first match. That's why I can think of some examples. She was terrible in her first match back. And in the UFC, the male commentators were like, she came back too early from having a baby. In the UFC, nobody gets cancelled, Yeah. But you're right. In tennis, it's hard to comment on because whatever you say, you'll get in trouble.
We can't say what Martina
All I know is Naomi Osaka wasn't good. She didn't play well. And she got knocked out but she is ranked 831st in the world because she's been off for 6 months, or more than 6 months.
She's had a long layoff.
Yeah, because 9 months of pregnancy, 6 months since she had the baby, and she got smashed by Caroline Garcia, who's ranked 19th in the world. You would expect the 19th ranked person in the world to smash an 831st ranked person in the world.
Yeah, although she's not really ranked that, is she? The ranking doesn't indicate. This is a 4-time major winner.
I would give Osaka another year to get back to fitness.
Yeah, give her some time. Another point to make, John, and you might think it's a bit, close to the bone, but I think it should be raised here. So Naomi Osaka has had issues with depression and anxiety. And I think someone like Martina Navratilova has got to be very careful with making these sorts of comments about somebody who suffers from depression and anxiety, and you sort of look at it and you go, I look at it and I go, well, I think it's a bit of a cheap shot from Martina Navratilova, given the issues that Naomi Osaka's had with depression and anxiety in the past. I mean, what Martina Navratilova, she didn't need to say that. She didn't. No one was forcing her to say that. She's gone out of her way to have a crack at Naomi Osaka's shape, and given her issues with depression and anxiety, I think it's out of line, John.
Yeah, well, that's I couldn't possibly comment on Naomi Osaka's. There's a lot of things where we have this thing where you don't have a right to comment and stuff like that because you never played rugby league, internet idiots. But in this, if I was a medical doctor, what's it, OBGYN, or what's it, pastoral care post-pregnancy care worker, then I could make a comment on that. I have absolutely no idea in my life how long it takes to get over having a baby.
Yeah. We're never going to know.
And I can never know. Yeah. No matter what modern society wants you to believe, I can never know. And so, I don't know, has Martina Navratilova had kids? Does she have kids? I don't know.
I don't believe so, John.
And did she... Well, she definitely didn't have kids and then go back and play tennis afterwards.
Look, I don't think she's got kids, John. No. I don't think she does.
No, she has never had a baby. So she also doesn't know. And she's not a OBGYN. She's done a post-pastoral care for it. She's got no idea whether Naomi Osaka is fit or not. And first return from a 2-year layoff is always going to be bad. She's not Naomi Osaka hasn't retired like Andy Murray, then missed tennis and comes back. She's gone and had you can call it an injury. She's returning from injury, so you should reserve judgment at least until Naomi Osaka has got some.
Yeah, I think she's entitled. I think no problem saying that she thought it was a C grade performance. That's fine. But when you say she's not in shape about somebody who's historically had these mental health issues. I think it's out of line, John. That's my opinion.
Yeah, me too. I think we'll see. I reserve judgment. I like Naomi Osaka. She's one of those characters that transcends tennis.
I really like Naomi Osaka, and I thought it was just disgraceful the way that when she won that 2018 US Open and the way Serena Williams just carried on and hijacked that US Open 100%. Win that she had was a pathetic display from Serena Williams that year. And, just completely ruined Naomi Osaka's moment. Yeah. And that's why I really like Isla Tomljanovic, because she ended Serena Williams' career, John. Anyway.
More controversy in tennis with Margaret Court ending her 4-year absence from Australian Open. I don't know why this is still going on, Margaret Court, honestly.
Yeah, so, John, she was last... she last appeared at the Grand Slam in 2020, and that year she was honoured in a ceremony on centre court to mark the 50th anniversary of her calendar year Grand Slam. She won all 4 majors in 1970. So she's going to make an appearance next week, apparently, John. She won this tournament 11 times, court. She has won the most Grand Slam titles in women's history with 24, one ahead of Serena Williams. And equal with Novak Djokovic. I don't know why we're talking about Margaret Court being equal with Novak Djokovic when one's in the women's competition and another's in the men's competition. But anyway, that's the way it goes these days, John. So obviously we've had these issues with Margaret Court around her public comments about homosexuality, same-sex marriage and transgender children. There have been calls mounting in recent years that, Margaret Court Arena at Melbourne Park should be renamed. You might remember John McEnroe and Navratilova, who's come up again here, John, held up a sign on Margaret Court Arena in 2019 saying Yvonne Goolagong Arena. They want the arena to be renamed Yvonne Goolagong Arena. Tennis Australia warned them about that at that time, and I can see why they did, John. I've always thought, why can't we be grown up enough and mature enough to go, we don't agree with Margaret Court's views, which I don't, John. I'm sure, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but I'm sure you don't agree with them.
No, I think she's a bit of a whack job.
Yes, I think she is too, John. But why can't people just go, all right, these are her views, but this has got nothing to do with her legacy as a tennis player and has nothing to do with an arena being named after her at Melbourne Park.
I completely separate it. It's two completely different things. Some of the worst people in the world can be amazing athletes, and those two things are irrelevant, except in cases where awards are given for being a good person. There's rugby league awards that are to do with community engagement. At the Dally M's or whatever, like Latrell Mitchell won the one that's to do with community engagement and charitable works and stuff like that. If Latrell Mitchell went out and did some terrible things as a human, which I don't think he ever has, yes, his community engagement award should be taken away, but his rugby league achievements, it doesn't detract from his rugby league achievements. If Margaret Court Arena was called Margaret Court Arena because Margaret Court was some kind of saint, and now she's not, then it should be taken away. But it's called Margaret Court Arena because she won 24 Grand Slams. She's the only woman to ever do it.
This is a woman. She's won more women's Grand Slam titles than anyone in history.
Yeah.
She's won 24. She's won more than Serena Williams,
who is the female GOAT. So
I mean,
no matter what,
someone with that record is going to have a tennis arena named after them.
I hate that she continues to be in the news, and it's because she's famous and she's detracts from her tennis achievements. But I don't think anybody should care if she's going to return.
Her views are ridiculous. But you can say her views are ridiculous, and you can also say that, well, she deserves to have a tennis arena named after her because she's clearly one of, if not the greatest female player of all time.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, going by Grand Slam titles won, she's the greatest.
Yeah. No one's... It's... 24, that was the one. That was like Roger Federer was the first person to win 20 Grand Slams.
Yes, and then now Novak Djokovic has won 24, yes.
Yeah, Andy Murray said first male. Yeah. You know, like Margaret Court played 1,000,000 years ago, man, and nobody has... Serena Williams came close.
Serena Williams tried so hard. She played on so long, but eventually she realised, look... I just can't.
And that should tell you how hard it is to do, and what an amazing achievement it is. You know, there's three male tennis players who have won over 20. It's 3, right?
Yes.
Yes, 3.
Djokovic 24, Nadal 22, Federer 20.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like that's how hard it is. And then Margaret Court played in the 70s, and nobody's been able to win 24. Even with all of the advances in sports science and all of the advances in rackets and all of the advances in blah, 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 no one's been able to do it. And you have to give credit where credit is due. I give 0 credit to her opinions on same-sex marriage, transgenderism and all that. Like 0 credit to it, but I give 100% credit to the fact that she won 24 Grand Slams.
Yes.
And a calendar year. How many people have won calendar year Grand Slams, men or women? Not very many.
Not many. Rod Laver did it twice.
Even Novak Djokovic.
Novak Djokovic has never done it. He's come very close a couple of times, but he's never done it.
Even Novak Djokovic hasn't done it.
No.
You know? I hate that she's always a story, though, and it always has to do with her. Like, she's a pastor of her church, and she doesn't believe in same-sex marriage.
I did put it down as a bit of a...
Yeah, because it's a tennis thing. My thing is always believe what you want to believe, even if you're wrong. Like, accept the flat earthers.
Yeah, it just needs to be a bit more maturity.
Yeah.
And not getting someone's personal views crossed over with their achievements in that sport.
Moving on to... So, have you seen this new rule? Okay, they've loosened the rules around fans entering the arena between games. It's causing massive delays between games. It's been slammed by Novak Djokovic, Daniil Medvedev and Jordan Thompson. Jordan Thompson actually blamed his loss on it.
There's a bit to unpack with this, John, so I don't know how often you've been to the tennis over the years, but I've been there many times. I've been to the Australian Open many times and other tennis events. I went to Wimbledon. So what happens, John, is if you're a fan and you leave the arena to go to the toilet or go to get something to eat or something to drink, you're not allowed to come back in until the players sit down at a changeover. Because they don't want you just coming in whenever and distracting the players. But the issue is, John, that you might... So at the start of sets, they don't sit down after one game. They just change ends. They don't have a sit-down. Because they have a sit-down at the end of the set, they don't want to give them 2 sit-downs very close together. So what happens is if you leave the arena after a set, which often you do, that's the time when most fans would leave at the end of a set to go get something to eat or drink. You've got to wait 3 games to be able to come back into the arena because it's 3 games in where they have their first sit-down. You could have a situation where you've got 3 long games and you're waiting half an hour to get back in as a fan who's paid money for your ticket. So that's an issue, John. But a counter to that is... when the players are returning the serve and the ball toss goes up and there's spectators walking around behind the server's arm, it can be very difficult for the returning player to pick up the serve. Having said that, it should not have any impact on the fans at the sides of the arena, only the fans at the back, behind the players. So there's a bit to unpack there, John. Fans, they make the game. They pay their money. And if they're locked out for potentially half an hour, in what other sport would fans be locked out of the arena for that amount of time just for going and getting something to eat or something to drink or going to the toilet?
Got to be a solution, because if players are saying it's causing them issues, then you have to pay attention to the fact that it's causing them issues. Like I said, Jordan Thompson actually blamed his loss on it, or some like lost sets and stuff like that on it. He really he went crazy about it. You know, in cricket, when you go watch the cricket, if you're behind the thing, you're not allowed to move.
Yeah, it's the same thing.
They can actually like call no balls and stuff like that if you move.
Yeah, there's fast bowlers bowling at 140 plus k's an hour, and in tennis you got. In the men's, you got people serving at over 200 k's an hour. Nick Kyrgios serves at 220 k's an hour.
And so, like, you would think they would have staging area. If they were going to have this rule, they would have staging areas where you could come in on the side and watch or whatever.
It seems like they've gone too hard too quickly with this.
Yeah.
The better option might have been to just try it on the sides of the arena.
Yeah.
And that shouldn't be a problem for the players. That's not in their line of vision, the fans on the sides of the arena. So they probably should have just started with that, John, see how that goes first, rather than just introducing this rule willy-nilly, and now the players have got their noses out of joint.
Yeah. Well, they're either going to get used to it or they're not, and the tennis is going to have to change it. You know, players are either going to get used to it or the tennis is going to have to change it. But it is a big thing in the Australian Open. I've never been to the tennis. I've been to the cricket, and I've seen people get in trouble for moving. And actually, like a ball called back because people were moving. Too many people were moving behind the bowler. Like it was kind of annoying. Actually, they were being idiots. And you know, depending on when you give crowd and fans like a little bit more rein, they'll tend to be idiots a lot of the time. So they might start doing things like purposely moving and things like that. And you know, in tennis, they've had stuff where like fans have done laser pointers into players' eyes and that stuff. So if there is a chance, think of it with Novak, right? If there was a chance for an Australian fan to distract Novak Djokovic, they would take it, and that will cause problems. And they have to have a solution for it if players are complaining about it, and they have to have a solution for it for the fans, because the only reason they would have changed is because fans complained. If no one was complaining about it, they wouldn't have changed it. And it is, like you said, it's a bit annoying to be locked out of the arena for 30 minutes.
Yeah, potentially, yeah.
So, you know, if they had staging areas or something where it was just like, oh, you're coming back in, come and stand here.
Yeah.
You can stand here and watch. You can't move, just stand here. All right, now you can go back to your seat, you know, so you don't have to miss out on watching it. I don't know.
Or another option is to have a sit down after the first game of the set to allow the fans to come back in. All right, it's 2 straight sit downs, but I think if you did that, you'd keep the fans and the players happy, because the players aren't going to complain about having an extra sit down. They love having an extra break, and the fans are going to like the fact that you've given them an extra opportunity to get back in the stadium. Yeah. So maybe that's an option, John, having that sit down after one game.
Not going to happen until next year now. Now, I don't know if you looked this up. I put this on there. So Rafael Nadal has been announced for the ambassador for Saudi Arabian Tennis Association or whatever. Yes. And John McEnroe is not happy about it. John McEnroe is a very vocal person.
Yeah, he is. Really good commentator, though, John. Yeah. I know a lot of people have been bagging him for his commentary. I don't agree with them, John. I think he's really good. He doesn't say too much. He's on point with his commentary. Yeah.
So, you know, Saudi Arabia is right now throwing big dollars at a lot of things. We've talked about it on this podcast.
Golf, the live
good
golf.
Money at golf, big money at boxing. They won the World Cup rights in the most rorted way possible. The Soccer World Cup rights in the most rorted way possible. Yes. But they also are not well looked upon by modern society because of a lot of things in their country, actually. Like, John McEnroe brought up a lot about the way they treat women, which, you know, again, it's hard to comment on because there's a religion-based element to it, and it's not our place. It's also not John McEnroe's place, to be honest. But there are other things about Saudi Arabia that you can comment on, like their murder of Jamal Khashoggi, you know, that they never faced any sanctions for.
Yeah, yeah. John, there was a journalist who had a go at Nadal about this too. Journalist Neil McMahon tweeted, "This is incredibly disappointing from Rafa, inexcusable. If they get Roger too, I'm done." He says, obviously referencing Roger Federer there. But one point McEnroe did make, John, was that he said something like, sorry, it's just somewhere. Yeah, this was McEnroe's quote. Let's put it this way: money talks. Oh no, I wouldn't do that. How much was I offered? On second thoughts, maybe I will do that.
But that's the thing. Like Saudi Arabia has so much money, and they can convert anything and put like a lot. Saudi Arabia has for years been looking for like a national sport.
Yeah,
and they're willing to throw heaps of money at rich people sports. So. The three biggest, most like rich sports on an individual level in the world are golf, boxing, and tennis. You know, those are the things. You have billionaire golfers, billionaire boxers like Floyd Mayweather, and on the way to billionaire tennis players. And it's no surprise that Saudi Arabia will put money into them.
Yeah. So, John, it's easy for journalist Neil McMahon to say that about Nadal, but when you actually made a money offer like that, maybe all of a sudden, maybe you're not so moral about some certain things. It's easy for him to say that, isn't it?
God knows how much they gave him, but there's so much money in Saudi Arabia. People just don't understand. And it is, a lot to do with it is because, like, in Western society, we talk about the richest people in the world, and it's Elon Musk and Jeff Bezos and stuff like that. But you listen to people who are, like, experts in world politics, and they apparently... Saudi Arabia makes fun of like the money that Elon Musk and Jeff Bezos has because it's so small. They only have $150 billion. That's pocket change to me. So, you know, they're willing, then, you know, the oil obviously is on the way out. Saudi Arabia is mainly an oil based country. They're looking for other things to engage their country. For their country to have as an export and stuff like that.
I suspect whatever Saudi Arabia wants from the ATP Tour, whether it's... and I know the WTA finals are going to be in Saudi Arabia, and McEnroe was saying that it was laughable to him that that's happening given Saudi Arabia's treatment of women. But I suspect whatever Saudi Arabia wants out of tennis, and when I say the ATP, I mean the WTA as well, so that they'll give them what they want out of fear of them starting a live golf type rebel tennis league.
It'll be like, okay, if you don't want us, fine then. We'll just pay Novak Djokovic $1 billion.
So the ATP and WTA need to tread very carefully with this. They're going to need to bow down to the demands really of Saudi Arabia here in fear of them starting a rebel type live golf style tennis league.
Look at boxing, right? People wouldn't give Francis Ngannou and Tyson Fury a look in. Saudi Arabia did and gave Tyson Fury $50 million. You know? And now they've got Anthony Joshua. This is the second or third biggest name in boxing to fight Francis Ngannou in like a month and a half's time for $50 million. They have the money to do whatever they want. And they will just, and it's that kind of thing where it's like, I give $50 million. No, 60. No, 200. Like they jump up in massive increments. And you can see like, yeah, if people don't follow along, they'll just do that. They'll just go and make their own tennis organization. And look, the Saudi Arabian sheiks are pretty spiteful as well. I think you can tell from the murder of Jamal Khashoggi. Yeah, like they will just go, all right, if you say no, fine then. we'll just make our own.
If they're doing that, John, I don't think they care too much about what the ATP and WTA are going to think about a rebel tennis league.
Exactly. So, yes. Just finishing up with tennis now. I had to turn the commentary off. Like, I totally see exactly what you're talking about, Todd Woodbridge. Oh. And I have seen now lots of comments on the internet about how people are watching the tennis muted. It is... You know what I was doing yesterday? Unmuting when Leighton Hewitt was on screen.
Yes.
And then muting again.
Yeah. So, John, I think what's happening is because Hewitt's very keen to watch the Australian players in the crowd, they're just using him as a courtside commentator at the moment, while these early rounds are playing out and while there's still Australians in the tournament. So what I suspect will happen, what I really hope to God will happen, John, is that once these Australians go out, which traditionally, John, by about the end of the first week, they all go out. Let's hope it doesn't happen, but it usually does.
Come on, Demon.
So I'm hoping that once that happens, that Hewitt will move into the box with Courier and McEnroe. And then you've got your commentary dream team there. And hopefully that'll push Woodbridge out of the commentary box. Because he talks too much, John. He's a gibber. What he says makes no sense a lot of the time. And every 5 minutes or so, they keep flashing up these promos for this new game show he's on. It's too much, John.
That'll continue.
Of course it will. He's too overexposed, John. It's just too much. Just stop talking, Todd. You don't have to say something all the time.
Yeah,
he talks too much. He's got an annoying voice. He's like a yapping dog in the commentary, John.
Yeah, nobody is happy with it. Like, all over the internet on. Reddit, Instagram, TikTok, everything. People are commenting on it, and everybody agrees. Like I always give him the benefit of the doubt. I tried to watch tennis yesterday, and as soon as he started talking, I'm like, "Oh, this is so annoying." Just mute. And tennis, you can watch without sound on. Actually, you can, because it's not like there's commentary during the points. But it is hard to watch, and I do like you said. I hope next week. Leighton Hewitt is moving into the main commentary, because his commentary is awesome.
Yeah.
Like, everything he says, I'm just like hanging on every word he says.
Yeah.
The way he reads the game is amazing. So,
just to clarify, John, I didn't call Woodbridge a dog. I just said his commentary. Yeah. I just said he's like a yapping dog in the
Producer
commentary.
John's over there giggling.
Yeah, there's a difference. He's like a yapping dog.
Don't worry, you caught flack for that. It's fine. We didn't get any flack so far for our Taylor Swift comments last week on Monday, so they'll come soon, I hope.
Did we criticise Taylor Swift?
Well, I said they are actually flashing too much to her. I agree now. After watching one night,
Woodbridge, he's just got to learn to pull back here and there.
He's been a commentator for a while, though. And
then those ads on the screen all the time.
They need to sell their TV show. That's why, whatever, the other day when you mentioned it, I said, is it Gladiators? Because, man, whatever channel Gladiators is on, as just every single thing has been Gladiators, no matter what. Gladiators. They're pushing Gladiators so much. And that's what it's like, I guess, with Todd Woodbridge's Tipping Point. That was his game show. So I remember it from yesterday. Normally, we looked it up on Monday. I wouldn't have remembered it. But because I was watching the tennis yesterday, I remember it because I've heard the words Tipping Point at least 17,000 times yesterday across a 3-hour match.
Is it going to make you watch Tipping Point, John?
No, not at all. I'm never going to watch a game show.
It's so overdone that you sort of resent the shows that they're promoting, don't you? So it's overkill with the publicity. Yeah. And then you go, I'd never watch that show in a million years.
I don't even know who still watches. Same with their Married at
First Sight promos. You go, well, I'm not watching that.
I don't even know who watches free-to-air television game shows anymore anyway. But anyway, that's tennis for the week. We'll see on Monday how Alex de Minaur and our Aussies are still going. But we can move on to cricket, and the West Indies test has now started. It's about to start again for the second day.
Yes.
Steve Smith as an opener didn't go very well.
Didn't go well, John. Out for 12 in his first test as an opener. Shamar Joseph, the West Indian tearaway quick, got Steve Smith out with his first ball in Test cricket. So it sort of brings back memories of Shane Warne getting Mike Gadding out with his first ball in England in a Test. But Shamar Joseph's got Steve Smith with his first ball in Test cricket on Test debut. What an extraordinary story he can tell his grandkids one day, John.
Exactly.
So he's he's just the second West Indian debutant to take a wicket with his first ball in Test cricket since Terrell Johnson in 1939. So there you go. So I don't think Terrell Johnson would have got out. I'm not sure who he got out back in 1939, John, but if it wasn't Don Bradman, then I don't think that the player he got out would have been as good as Steve Smith.
That's it.
Out for 12, Steve Smith, John. And as you said the other day, got out for a duck in that Big Bash game the other night. In the Australia-Pakistan Test Series, Smith averaged just 38.80, scored just 150 across the 6 innings in the 3 tests. He had the worst strike rate in the team as well, which included the tail enders, if you can believe that, of just 40. and he averaged just 33.55 at the Cricket World Cup. So Steve Smith has had a slide in form across all three forms of the game.
Yes,
John.
he has. And, Australia is batting right now. I think what were they? 76 for 3. They got West Indies all out for 188. And then they're 76 for 3 with Usman Khawaja on 35 not out. You've got to give him more time, Steve Smith as the opener.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
But honestly, that didn't look good. He did hit 2 fours in his 26 balls he faced, but still, that's not good. Out for 12.
Yeah, it's a failure. Obviously they'll give him the series there, John, and see how he goes. You'd hope he can.
See, he's
he can come good.
Number 4 replacement was out for 14.
Cameron Green.
Yeah, Cameron Green out for 14 as well. So he didn't even anchor the innings.
And Shamar Joseph got Labuschagne out as well. So what a start getting Smith and Labuschagne in your first test.
He also got Green.
Oh, sorry. Hang on.
So he's gotten Smith, Labuschagne and Green. Just looking on SmartB for the...
Oh, so I think what's happened, John, is they were 2 down at stump. So I think he's got Green today, this morning as we speak.
Yeah.
Because I think
it just started. It started.
We're 11 a.m. So play only started half an hour ago.
Yep,
so
and he's gotten.
Yeah, we've got live.
Got Green out for 14.
So Green's actually been dismissed this morning.
Head to smartb.com.au to follow your live updates, which we're doing.
Yeah, you're on the button there, John, with the live.
So Travis Head is now in for 1 off 8 balls, but
he's not out. Travis Head.
There's 2. The problem is there's 2 Josephs in the West Indies team, A Joseph and S Joseph.
Yeah, so Shamar's got the 3.
But Shamar's got all 3, so and he's currently bowling to Green. So, it's... We'll see. They've got another match. They're currently trailed by 113 runs. So West Indies didn't exactly have the best opening day. And I would expect this match to be over on late day 3 or day 4 because it is the West Indies. And we'll see if Steve Smith can do better next time, but it is kind of bad that he got out for 12. That's terrible as our Dave Warner replacement. Speaking of Dave Warner, he was commentating in the BBL. Oh God!
Yeah, commentated on Fox, John, and there were some people on social media who got into him, of course, John. But they said they don't think that he had the voice for the commentary, and I had a bit of I did check it out, John. Curiosity got me. I wanted to see how he went as a commentator. And look, I tend to agree, John. I don't know if he's got the voice for it. And what I would say, just in general about David Warner is, I just think people just need a bit of a break from him. I mean, he's just retired from the Test arena. And he's just only a matter of a week or 2 later, he's jumping in the commentary box. I would have thought just chill out for the rest of the summer. Just play the rest of the Big Bash and just have a bit of a break.
I can't understand why they would think it would be a good idea to have David Warner, that most people hate, as a commentator. I can't understand it. What thought process
that's the thing,
is that?
If they've not done market research on him, he's unpopular, John. He's not popular with the viewing public. It was the same with... it's a similar situation with Michael Clark. Remember Michael Clark became a commentator with Channel 9, and then when Channel 7 and Fox took over, they didn't want to borrow him as a commentator. They just...
Because people didn't like him.
They took over, and I think 7 and Fox went, well, why did Channel 9 have him as a commentator? He's unpopular, and neither of them touched him. So...
That's bizarre.
I think Fox, they really... They haven't done their homework on how
so bizarre.
little David Warner is liked by the wider public.
Can't imagine that meeting either. There's somebody's weirdly in charge of what David Warner does. I have no idea. First they let him helicopter, now they let him commentate. Like what thought process is this that they would think that adding Dave Warner to the commentary anyone would like that? Doesn't matter if you like some people do like Dave Warner, but most people don't, and most people won't want to hear him.
So if you're hiring commentators, you need to hire commentators who are liked.
Exactly. And then it was revealed what happened with his stolen baggy greens. Again, another weird story. They just left it at the hotel, right?
It was no big deal. Just having a quick look at this, John. They reappeared just after the test started. So it was revealed by the Sydney Morning Herald. The bag containing the caps never left its spot with the rest of the baggage in the team's room at the Intercontinental Hotel in Double Bay. But it's just weird how, his wife, Candice, was asked about it, and she said it's a question for security management. And that they were not really sort of upfront and honest about that, John. And that sort of looks worse, doesn't it? If they had to come out and just said, look, it's funny. The funniest thing happened.
He just left it there.
The funniest thing happened. It turned out it was where it was supposed. If they were just honest about that, people would have just gone, "Oh, okay." But it's the fact that they're not honest about it, and then it had to be revealed by a newspaper what had happened.
Like, imagine that you put your crack investigative reporter on the job to find out what happened with Dave Warner's baggy greens.
Yeah, it's a real investigative scoop there by the Sydney Morning Herald, John. I saw the quotes from Pat Cummins, and Cummins was quoted on this and said, "It's probably not my story to tell. Maybe talk to Davey." I don't know, John. I'd look at a quote like that, and I get the feeling that there's an underlying annoyance from Pat Cummins there, that everything seems to be all about David Warner all the time. And I know he hasn't come out and said that explicitly, but you can read between the lines sometimes, and I just feel like Pat Cummins. And there was another quote I read from him about the David Warner farewell. He said something along the lines of, apparently it's David's last test match or something. And he was only joking. I just get this feeling Pat Cummins is not too thrilled with all the attention David Warner's been getting, John.
I'm sure he would think, isn't this over? Isn't it over? Isn't he gone? Isn't he done? It's like I said, like we said the other day, you just got to find out how the news will continue to make it all about Dave Warner, and they just do. We give it a year, maybe Dave Warner will fade into obscurity. But if he's in commentary, probably not.
But if I was advising David Warner, if I was his management, I would have said to him, after the whole, this whole farewell and these baggy greens and everything, and the helicopter to the Big Bash.
Helicopter.
I would have just said, look, Dave, we're going to just take the rest of the summer off.
Yeah.
Okay? Just from a PR perspective.
Go play your matches.
Have the summer off. Maybe if you're going to start doing commentary, maybe start next summer.
Yeah,
but just cool your heels.
Finish up the BBL season at the Thunder. You got one more game. That was it. So, because the BBL's almost over, the finals are determined. It'll be Brisbane Heat versus Sydney Sixers tomorrow. Obviously, Steve Smith won't play. No, tomorrow, Friday, and then Perth Scorchers versus Adelaide Strikers on Saturday. He could have just gone and played out the BBL in the last game, and then all right. Go about your day. Have a holiday, bro.
Take a break, Dave.
Take your family for a holiday. Yeah. It is currently school holidays.
Yeah.
He could have gone away for a couple of weeks until the 30th when everyone returns, and then that would have been it. But no, we've got to say about Dave Warner every time. Just wanted to. I read this morning. It got sent to me. Mazza Arshad, I don't know who that is, has tweeted a thing about Nathan Lyon, right? Because he hit his 500. It was actually in December last year when he hit the 500.
Yeah, 500 test wickets, yep.
It's a great achievement, but what about doing it without overstepping ever in your test career? Nathan Lyon has 501 wickets, bowled 31,608 balls, and never bowled a line no ball. A little known stat that just popped up on my feed this morning. I was like, wow. Never. Amazing.
Yeah, full credit to Nathan Lyon. Well done. He's had a great career, John. Only the third Australian bowler behind the great Shane Warne and the great Glenn McGrath to take 500 test wickets.
3 out of 8 as well. So, once again, Australia proving we're the best cricket nation.
In terms of David Warner, John, I think his PR team and Novak Djokovic's PR team need to get together and have a big brainstorming session.
Yeah. Okay, so, make sure if you're interested, what's the BBL Finals? Hopefully Sydney Sixers will win. On to rugby league and continuing our honestly, guys, it's just our opinion theme for the next couple of weeks. It's time for our Bulldogs preview. Just quickly, you had the Tigers at 17th. I had the Dragons at... Sorry, you had the Tigers at 17th. I had them at 15th. You had the Dragons at 14th very nicely. I have them at 17th. And today's preview is the Bulldogs.
Yes.
So your team, they're the most player movement in the league.
Yes. John, what I did was, I know you've taken some very detailed notes there on the Bulldogs. I've actually gone through and done a predicted round one team for the Bulldogs. I'll just read it out and then I might get your thoughts on what I've put together. So, John, I've got Stephen Crichton at fullback.
Yep.
I've got Josh Adokar and Jacob Carraz on the wings. I've got Matt Burton and Connor Tracy in the centres. In my halves, I've got Drew Hutchison and Toby Sexton, mainly because I couldn't find any other options, John. Not really because I want them to be there, but you can only work with what you've got, right?
Yep.
In the front row, Max King, he averaged 107 run metres and 36 tackles a game last season, John. So I've got him in the front row. I've got Josh Curran as my other front rower, obviously Reid Marnie at hooker. The back row, I've got Jacob Preston, Viliami Kickout and Kurt Mann. Hopefully we get a lot more of Viliami Kickout this season after injury just plagued him last season, John. On the bench, Blake Taff, Samuel Hughes, Jamin Salmon and Liam Knight. So that's 6 new recruits in their 17-man squad that I've got there. They were 7 wins, 17 losses last year. So, I've got Burton in the centres, John. He played 2 games for New South Wales at centre in 2022, and also scored a try in the 2021 grand final in that position. That was when he was playing for Penrith against Souths in that grand final. So do you have anything to sort of quiz me on there, John?
That's the thing, right? You read out their forward pack with Max King in the front row. Okay, so their forward pack is super inexperienced.
Yes.
Okay, so the most did you have Sutton in there? Ryan Sutton.
No, I didn't find a spot for Sutton.
Yeah, and so Ryan Sutton is their most capped front row forward.
Yeah.
With 88 games.
Yeah.
Right now. So they've got a massively inexperienced forward pack. Like they've had massive play. I mean, you've got 6 new players in their squad. Like that's probably their best team.
They've gone very heavy on the utilities, haven't
they? But I don't know. Like the people are putting Crichton at fullback, and there's a lot of people putting Taff on the bench. I'm not really sure he could be a bench utility. I know he's played he can apparently play fullback 6 and 7. I don't know if that's the best.
So do you sort of think maybe they should put Sutton in ahead of Taff on the bench there?
Possibly, yeah, because that's they bought Stephen Crichton. He's their big signing, right? Yes. And so people are gonna want him playing at fullback because he's their big signing, right? It's reminiscent to me of when Darius Boyd came to the Dragons, actually. The Dragons had previously sucked. Wayne Bennett came on board. He brought his son, Darius Boyd, with him. Darius Boyd, traditionally a centre or winger for Origin. And all of the Dragons fans were like, he's come on big money. He needs to play fullback, right? He was really good at fullback. And I think he only scored 1 try all year. His first year, something like that. And so Stephen Crichton is the big money signing that the Bulldogs have, and so people are going to want him to play a very important role of fullback. And then, a lot of people are moving Burton back to the centres because that's his junior position, but that leaves your halves.
Yeah, it does. I take your point on that, John, but I just think Burton's going to offer them a lot more in the centres, John. I really do. I mean, he hasn't, to be honest, John, he hasn't really worked for them at 5'8". He hasn't.
No, it's
really,
but his kicking is so important.
I mean, you can still use his kicking even though he can still come in and do the bombs and act as a third sort of kicking option there. John, I thought I'd just run through their key comings and goings.
There's so many. More than any other
I've sort of got
team.
it down to the key ones here, John. So the key ones are, as we talked about, their big money signing is Stephen Crichton from the Panthers. Connor Tracy, Blake Taft, Jamin Salmon, Josh Curran, Drew Hutchison, Kurt Mann and Jake Turpin. They're the key ins for the Bulldogs. The key outs, Jake Avarillo gone to the Dolphins. That's one that surprised me, John. That's a huge loss. He was one of their best, apart from Adokar, I think he's their best try scorer in the last couple of years. So Tavita Pangai Jr., as we know, retired to take up boxing, John. Paul Alamotti and Corey Waddell also have departed. A couple of injuries to worry about. Connor Tracy, we're hoping that he gets back for round one. He's still battling that calf injury, John. And Carl Oluwapu, that gun young half, has a neck injury that's keeping him out indefinitely, John. So hopefully he's okay.
So could Connor Tracy play in the halves?
I don't believe so, John. I think he's more of an outside back. But I think that back five is looking pretty good for them, John, isn't it? Crichton, Adokar, if Burton does play in the centres, Burton, Tracy and Carraz. Yeah, but that's very sharp.
So that's a good...
Yes.
Good back five, but the forwards are really going to... you don't know, they're inexperienced.
So it's a good back five and they've got a lot of utilities.
Yeah, Connor Tracy can play halves.
Okay. Yeah. But they are lacking in the halves, John, and as you say, they are lacking in the engine room.
When he was at Cronulla, I thought his best position was 5'8", actually.
Okay, well, that gives them another option then, doesn't it?
Yeah, he should be back in but... So, I also think Hutchison's best position is at 6, right? He was he came over from the Roosters, right? And Roosters have got... one of our commenters mentioned it last time that, the Roosters scapegoat their halves a lot. Mitchell Pearce was a scapegoat for... they tend to do it. It doesn't matter who the coach is or anything. Mitchell Pearce was a scapegoat for a lot of their problems with their form. There were other guys since then as well. Now, Luke Keary, who was their wonderkind, is now a scapegoat for them as well. And Hutchison was the big one, the big blame this year. So he was let go... and I reckon his best position is 6. But he's probably the most senior player you have in the halves there. And he's only played 110 games. And he's 28 years old. So he's played 110 games in, a lot of time.
It actually... so, John, we talk about the Bulldogs being weak in the halves. And this has been all too common for the Bulldogs. This has been their main weakness for a long time, John. Now, the Bulldogs haven't had a genuine creative halfback since Brett Kamali retired in 2010. And before him, Brent Sherwin, who led them to that premiership in 2004. Even the years they made the grand final since then, John, Chris Keating was their halfback in the 2012 grand final.
I don't even remember that.
They didn't need a halfback that year, John. If you remember, their forwards were the ball players.
Sam Cassiano, James Graham.
And Sam Cassiano were basically the halves as prop forwards that year for the Bulldogs. And obviously Ben Barber and Josh Morris were so hot at that time that they got to the grand final without really needing a halfback. And then 2014... they had Trent Hodkinson as halfback and co-captain in that 2014 grand final. But he wasn't really a creative halfback, John. He was more of a game-managing, sort of overseeing halfback.
Excuse me, he was a State of Origin winner.
If you can believe it, him and Josh Reynolds led New South Wales to that 1 out of 12 Origin win in 2014.
Exactly.
So, look, I like Trent.
No, he was so
John.
good.
I'm not having a big go at him, but he wasn't.
He was more the Cooper Cronk style.
Yeah, he wasn't your Brett Kamali or Brent Sherwin creative halfback. He was your game manager, overseeing, making sure the team, ran the right lines, composure sort of halfback. And that everybody's got different styles. He had
you kind of want one of those, and then you want the creative guy. That's more.
But I think we're at a point where we need this creative halfback to come back in for the Bulldogs. It's been a long time. 2010, that's 14 years ago now, John. Toby Sexton doesn't appear to be the long-term solution there, John. And you've talked about that you've heard that there's this mystery halfback that they're chasing.
Yeah, I'd really like to know
what's going on. But they need to go to market to find this mystery halfback you're talking about,
Could be Connor Tracy. He can play half.
I mean, I like Connor Tracy, John, but I really hope it's another candidate that you've got in mind.
So this is the thing, right? They have a back five. The Bulldogs have a back five that is pretty good. Okay, and there's players in it that you talk about, like Stephen Crichton. They also have players like Bronson Xerri that you don't know how good they're going to go. He can play wing, but they have Josh Adokar.
Yeah, I mean, he's probably not going to be in the top 17, assuming everybody's fit, but he'll be someone who, will come into consideration.
And then they've got inexperienced halves, and like I said, the senior half in that group is Hutchinson, who's played 110 games in like 10 years. He's been around for, I think, 8 years. I just looked it up. But it was, so since 2015, he made his debut at St. George Illawarra. So what's that? That's 8 years. He's played 110 games. He's not exactly ever set the world on fire, and that's your senior half. That's your senior spine, actually. You're not going to see a lot of creativity. And then the forwards are so young. Like, young forwards can go either way as well. Like, this is the thing. When you have a youthful, inexperienced forward pack, they can be super creative and they can become those guys that run the lines and get the tries. They can also be, like, really aggressive in defence and aim up really well. Or they can get monstered by, them coming up against, like, a senior forward pack. They could very well get monstered. Or they could try and put on a show and bash the guys. Like, you go back to Josh Papali bashing Paul Gallen once. That was a young, up-and-coming front row forward trying to prove he's the new kid on the block that could dominate the, top prop. They also, one of the things about the Bulldogs is they have the second worst run draw after the Rabbitohs.
I know I sound like a complaining supporter, John, but it seems because they get big TV ratings, they seem to always be put up against the best sides.
Yeah, well, they have 13 matches against the 2023 top 8 teams.
Happens every year, John.
And
every
5
year.
matches against top 4 teams. The teams they're playing twice, though, look, taking off 2023 teams is not the best thing you can do because you don't know what's going to happen next year. But the teams they're playing twice are Raiders, Sharks, Knights, Cowboys, Eels, Dragons, Roosters, Warriors. Now, in that lot, the ones I see as really big dangers are Roosters, Warriors, and Eels. Okay. I'm actually expecting a big drop by the Raiders and possibly the Knights, so that changes the whole draw. Like 2023 finalists playing twice, but then
I'm still worried about the Dolphins too, just quietly. But anyway,
they have the good thing is though the benefits they have is they have no 5-day turnarounds the whole year, which is that's an amazing thing. Like that's really good.
That will help.
And they also only play the Panthers, Storm, and Broncos once, which is really good. Their opening 6 rounds is going to tell you everything about their club. Okay. Their things. They've got Eels and Sharks away, then their first home game with the Titans, then Rabbitohs away, Roosters at home, and Storm away. So they have to play the Rabbitohs, who are meant to go really good, expected to go really good this year with a fit Latrell, Roosters, who are the Roosters, the Storm, who are the Storm, last year top 8 Sharks, and the Eels, who are meant to be a powerhouse team, all in the opening 6 rounds. And they have 4 away games as well. So the opening 6 rounds is really going to actually tell you whether those forwards can aim up and whether their halves can actually get the forwards moving forward and the backs to score. Because they've got a lot of points in the back. That's the thing. They got a lot.
Yeah.
It's going to come down to whether their forwards can aim up in defence and whether the halves can create.
Yes.
That's really cliche.
But it has been a huge issue for them.
It's not like I'm going to go when we get to the Roosters. It's going to come down to whether their forwards can aim up because the Roosters forward pack is, and whether their halves can create. But
we're saying it's an issue because it's an issue.
Yeah, exactly.
It's an ongoing
like I said,
issue.
You can't fit Ryan Sutton in your
My 17. He didn't quite get
and he is the most experienced front row forward in the whole squad with just 88 games.
Yeah. There's always injuries, John. I'm sure he'll play his part. I'm sure Bronson Xerri will get an opportunity at some stage.
How many games has Max King played?
So I had his stats there: 107 run meters and 36 tackles a game last season. But I don't have how many games he's played in front of me.
He has played 97 full games, but not always in the front row forward. So so that's the thing. Ryan Sutton's played the most games in the front row. I think Max King was 81 in the front row. So it is gonna be difficult for them to come anywhere, and I think it's really gonna come down to those first 6 games. They do well in that first 6 rounds, win they don't necessarily have to win the hard ones like the Storm and the Roosters. But again, I can harken you back to the Dragons. I think it was in 2009 they opened up against Melbourne. And, the Dragons had sucked for years. 2009 they opened up against Melbourne, got beat. And I think it was 17-16 was the score. And Greg Inglis manhandled Jamie Sow. It was embarrassing. But they put it to Melbourne. They lost, but they put it to Melbourne. And every single Dragons fan at that stage went, oh, this is going to be a good year. And that's what you see. When they open up against the Eels, if they do really well, cool. But when they hit those Roosters and Storm games, that's when you're going to actually see what the Bulldogs are made of this year.
Okay, John, do you mind if I turn this discussion to the head honchos at the club?
Phil Gould?
So Phil Gould joined the Bulldogs as General Manager of Football in July 2021. The club won the spoon that year, but we're not going to be unfair and hold that against him, John. That would be ridiculous. So we're going to disregard that. 2022, that's his first full season at the club. They finished 12th. 2023, they finished 15th. So if we say 2022 was year one for him, 2024 is year three. He can keep talking about the lower grade success all he wants, but some stage the first grade team needs to get results, John. If they bomb out this year, will Gould be sacked? Will he be facing the axe? I mean,
I think it depends on how they bomb out, actually. Because like if
there's no improvement, if it's a repeat, if it's a third,
if they're a team, because they scored a lot of points at the back end of the season this year, but they also let in a lot of points, and I think the stats were things like they let in the most points and stuff like that. They had really terrible stats. If they bomb out and have those kind of stats again, then it could very well be the end of Phil Gould as general manager of football.
You've talked about in the past people in those positions. Year three is a big year.
Yeah. I just really like I think their recruitment is, if their recruitment lets them down.
It's curious. Yeah. It's strange.
I know Cameron Ciraldo is in a lot of charges, but obviously Phil Gould is involved a lot, and their recruitment is strange, and they haven't recruited any experienced front So Kickow is obviously their forward leader. He didn't play last year very much because of injury. Yeah. You're gonna hope that he brings the guys up around him. Guys like Max King, what's the guy? Toby Sexton.
He's the halfback. Yep.
Yeah. No, what's the blonde guy? The mullet guy. I can
think about Jacob Preston.
Yeah, that's him, Jacob Preston. See, Sexton Preston. Bring in Preston because Preston was impressive all year. He won all the awards at the Bulldogs Award night. And if Kickow can bring the forward pack up, it'll all prove to be a masterstroke. But and the recruitment is so weird.
And Cameron Ciraldo, John, third last in his first season. If he has another bomb out year like that, could be under some serious pressure.
Yeah, I hope not. I think they should give him an extra year. I think they should count this year as his first year. From the management standpoint, obviously statistically you can't, but from a management standpoint, he's recruited his team that he wants with all the weird recruitment. He's had his off season. He's let go of a lot of players. It's 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 players let go. He's foolishly let go of Kyle Flanagan, who's going to be the star signing for the Dragons. But, I think they should count this year as his first year and then next year is whatever. If he does super well this year and then collapses next year, then it all starts again. But I think they should totally discount Cameron Ciraldo's this year. Totally discount it.
At some stage for Gould and Ciraldo, the discounting will stop.
Yeah, exactly.
They will be held.
Cameron Ciraldo's got 2 more years. I think Phil Gould. This is Phil Gould's last year. Because no matter how, like you said, no matter how much they do well in the bottom, I think the fans accept it for a while.
You can talk about the lower grades all you want, and that's great. But at some stage, you need to see results in first grade because in reality, John, most people only care about first grade.
Exactly.
So I guess if we're looking at where they will finish. So to summarise, John, they got a bunch of hard-working, honest recruits, along with, of course, the superstar that is Stephen Crichton.
Yep.
So on paper, they got a good back five, lacking in the halves, as we've mentioned, and they're light on in the engine room, as we've talked about. I think these new recruits will bring a good attitude, and it will have an impact. There's a lot of talk about the poor culture at the club. It won't be enough to get them in the 8, though, John, in my view. I've got them moving up from number 15 to number 12 on the ladder in 2024.
I'm going to note that down. So mine, I feel basically the same way. Like I said, I think the first 6 rounds will tell us a lot, but my finish for the Bulldogs next year is 11th.
Yeah, okay. So you've got on one spot.
I think they're no longer going to be fighting for the wooden spoon. Out of those Tigers, Dragons and Bulldogs, I know I said like the Tigers look like they've got the best chance, but I honestly think just based on, Cameron Serrata versus Benji Marshall, I think Bulldogs actually have more of a chance of avoiding that fighting for the wooden spoon than the Tigers do.
So if they finish 11th in a 17-team comp, John, you're probably looking at a team that wins about maybe 9 or 10 games, as opposed to a team that won 7 games this year. So I think if they can do that, if they can win 9 or 10 and move up to about 11 or 12 like we're talking about, that's probably enough for Gould and Serraldo to survive without issue.
One more year.
But if it's 15th again, John, or worse than 15th, bottom 3, there's massive red alert signs for those two at the end of the season.
11th. So 11th and 12th actually were Cowboys and Sea Eagles this year, and it was 12 and 11 wins.
Right, okay.
So, man, you get 12 or 11 wins,
Oh, yeah, well, if they do that.
Bulldogs fans are going to have a party.
Well, that'll be a huge improvement, and that's what we need to see at this point.
So that's it for the Bulldogs. That's it for honestly, guys. It's just our opinion. Next week we'll be hammering the Titans. Well, discussing the Titans,
yes.
The team that's cared about least in the NRL. Sorry, Titans fans. But the ladder is taking shape. Onto the rugby league news. Dragons have found a replacement for Ronald Volkman that we discussed the other day. Mm-hmm. They signed Sydney Bears half Jesse...
North Sydney Bears?
Yeah, North Sydney. No, Jesse, I don't even know how to say
Marshke?
Yeah, something like that, to their top 30. Mm-hmm. So now they do have another half replacement. He can play 5'8" and halfback. Okay. But I just wanted to touch on that Ronald Volkman discussion. So he actually has no club for 2025. I've done a little bit of research on this. Dragons were informed that he has some shoulder discomfort before they signed him. Before all the signatures were done and everything, they announced his signing on social media, before doing his medical, before even the contracts were signed. And based on that, his agent submitted his Warriors release to the Warriors, like signed and everything, and hadn't confirmed the Dragons' signature for a contract. Then the Dragons did their medical, found that his shoulder needed surgery and he was going to be off for a year, and said, sorry, you don't have an agreement then. So he is now left with nothing for a year. And it's not like he's a superstar that can take a year off and come back. The fact that the Dragons announced his signing before doing his medical publicly on their social media, I believe, just to reiterate, I'm a Dragons fan, I believe the NRL should step in and make them pay his salary.
It sounds like Ronald Volkman's been very hard done by here, John. Sounds like very unfair treatment, and you're right, the NRL need to step in and sort that out.
Yeah, like he's left with nothing.
It's not
and
acceptable.
You think Ronald Volkman...
What's he supposed to do?
Yeah. He can do nothing. And they're supposed to be... They say they're going to take care of everyone, and they've implemented all these things to take care of players and things like that. He's 21 years old. 21. He's played 5 games for the Warriors, and he played for Samoa in the 2023 Pacific, whatever the thingy was, all right? And then, they've just cut him loose. You think this guy is going to be... This 21-year-old is going to be able to go for a year with nothing. He's got no salary, no club, no nothing, and then come back in 2025 to a club. It's just such a terrible situation for a young, up-and-coming international representative.
Yeah, and for players sort of on the fringe like that, a year's a long time out of the game. The game can pass you by very quickly. That's why I think Bronson Cherry's done really well to sort of get into the position he's in with the Bulldogs. Landing after a 4-year suspension, landing a contract with them. He's done extremely well to get back.
Yep.
And I guess for someone like Ronald Volkman, obviously I'm not saying he's done what Bronson Cherry did, but Ronald Volkman would need to have a look at someone like Bronson Cherry as a bit of inspiration. You can get back. But it is hard for these players with a year out, and in Bronson Cherry's case, 4 years out. You can really lose touch with the standard and And, but this situation needs to be cleared up by the NRL. It's not good enough.
They should look at his agent as well, who signed and submitted the release to the Warriors just based on the Dragons posting on social media that they had signed him. They did the whole, Photoshop him in the jersey and stuff like that. He is now a Dragons player. So the agent went, okay, cool, it's announced I can get his release all sorted. He can move over from New Zealand to Australia. And then he arrives and they go, no, you need a year out. You only have a 1 year agreement. Look, we're not even going to sign you this year.
Tell you what, if the NRL don't sort that out, there's going to be some journalists interested to talk to Ronald Volkman to get his story.
I think so. And isn't that what the Players Association is for as well? Shouldn't they be stepping in and going, hey, you're not allowed to do that. That's a terrible thing to do to a young 21-year-old kid. That's basically a union. Isn't that what a union is for?
Yeah.
But I know I'm a Dragons fan, but I do not like the way they've behaved in this situation. I'm glad they found someone to sign, but I don't like the way they've behaved. All the Warriors, all Ronald Volkman's agents, the only person I support in this situation is Ronald Volkman.
Yeah, hopefully he gets some clarity on that, John. Hopefully that gets sorted out by the NRL.
Yep, now that's it for the NRL. On to the AFL. Yes. Ben Cousins has appeared at... What's he doing at Richmond?
Yeah, look, he's just sort of gone back there and just greeted some of the players, including Dustin Martin, the 3-time premiership winner and Norm Smith medalist. They were just there sort of, glad to see that Ben Cousins seems to be in a better place, John. He seems to be, he's overcome a drug addiction, John. He's in a better place and he's doing well with his life now. Cousins finished his career with Richmond in 2009 and 2010, John.
Yep.
So he's sort of just gone back there, a bit of a meet and greet, and, Richmond was sort of happy to have him. So, good signs for Ben Cousins. It's a feel-good story for the AFL, this one, amid some bad publicity with some other stories.
I actually saw this news article the other day as well that I forgot to add in, but you reminded me because you put Ben Cousins in there. Kane Corns, the AFL analyst, said that they should reconsider Ben Cousins being inducted into the Hall of Fame because he wasn't inducted to the Hall of Fame when he became eligible. And he's been eligible for the Hall of Fame induction since 2013. And, you just look at his stats, 270 games, 2006 Premiership, 2005 Brownlow Medal, and 6 All-Australian. He was going to be in the Hall of Fame. Everyone thought he would, but then he had those well-publicised issues with drug addiction and stuff like that, and the AFL didn't want to have that publicity, so they didn't induct him. Now that he's turned his life around, there's no reason to not, basically.
Yeah, I mean, it all just depends on what's their criteria for the Hall of Fame. Is the criteria, off-field track record indiscretions? Does that come into it or not? If it's not supposed to come into it, well, and you look at his playing record, certainly on playing record alone, he'd be one of the first players in the Hall of Fame. But yeah, it all depends on that criteria, doesn't it? But I guess at some point you do have to forgive and forget, and especially if somebody overcomes their addiction. Ben Cousins there could be a real role for him at the AFL. He could help young players through these issues. I know the AFL don't want, it publicised when players, I think it's their first 2 strikes, they're not made public and only made public on their 3rd strike for illicit drugs for AFL players. So Ben Cousins could really play a role for the AFL with players who have 1 and 2 strikes. He could, sit down with these players and work through and help them out. And even after they have their 3rd strike, obviously, and it gets made public, he could help them out at that point as well. Could be a real role for Ben Cousins here. It's great to see that he's turned his life around, John.
Yeah, definitely. But I hope they look at that Hall of Fame thing. So this week, that's it for the AFL. This week, there's Sean Strickland versus Dricus du Plessis in Canada. UFC 297 is on Sunday. It is a late one, so it starts at 2 p.m, I believe, because it's in Canada and the time zones. Sean Strickland and Dricus du Plessis have made up. There's some footage floating around the internet right now of Dricus du Plessis arriving to some hotel and Sean Strickland's actually sitting there. Of course, everyone's like, oh, there's going to be another fight. But apparently they've spoken to each other via message and come to some agreements. about what they're going to talk about in the press conference, which is tomorrow. Sean Strickland said on his podcast, he's such a GTA character. He did say if Drukas brings up his childhood abuse again, then Sean Strickland would stab him. And then there was some footage on the internet of Sean Strickland in Canada buying a knife.
Oh, wow.
That's not what they want. But they have messaged each other and made up. That'll be a cracker of a fight. A lot of people have got Duplessis winning just because he's a superior grappler. But Sean Strickland gets underestimated every single fight he's in. He's just a legit striker, absolutely amazing. And I reckon Sean Strickland's going to get it. I hope he does, because I actually kind of like the guy. Not very much else on the card. But yeah, it starts at 2 p.m. I'm going to the pub to watch, and I'm not buying that pay-per-view. It's that bad.
Yeah, I think I might be watching too, John. So
yeah, there should be some bangers on there, but it's just like the names aren't big, because next month is UFC 298 with Sean O'Malley. And Sean O'Malley, the UFC is trying to build him up as a big name, even though he's not. Like, a lot of people know who he is, but he doesn't get a lot of views. And so they've made a banger of a card for his one. Like, his card is like, wow, I can't miss this. And then UFC 300 is the next month in April. And that's like the really big one that's coming up. So this card is a little bit tame. But yeah, it's a pub watch, not a personal have boys over to watch it at my house.
Yes.
On to other sports news. Leighton Hewitt's son is playing. Oh, man, I feel so old.
Yeah, it does make us feel old, John. So Leighton Hewitt's 15-year-old son, Cruz, is set for his biggest stage yet. He's been given a wild card to the Australian Open Junior Championships, John. So there you go. It does make us feel very long in the tooth, doesn't it? That Leighton Hewitt's son is now emerging on the scene.
I feel so old, man. Now I watched 2 generations of Hewitts play tennis. Oh,
so there you
God.
go. It'll be interesting to see how he goes.
Yeah, maybe he can duplicate his dad's rise to the top.
Yeah, well, hopefully, John, hopefully.
We did forget this NRL rule change that came out, so we can just touch on that.
Yes.
Just this morning, the NRL has announced a rules change in other sports news. So it breaks down as if a team kicks the ball out on the full over the touchline or the ball fails to travel at least 10 metres forward in an attempt to contest a restart from the goal line, 20-metre line or halfway line, play will now restart with a play the ball 10 metres out from the line of the kick and 10 metres in from touch rather than with a penalty kick. So basically all of the kicking penalties are now, instead of kicking for touch, you get to play the ball. So
or even a shot at goal, John, if you're close enough. Because you get no penalty, right? So play the ball instead of a penalty. So,
yeah, that's right.
So you don't get a shot at
So
goal.
Graham Zannersley said, while relatively minor, this change will add to the unpredictability of the game. Teams will no longer risk conceding significant territory as well as a penalty for attempting to regain possession from restart to play. I don't know. I heard MG talking about it this morning, and he doesn't like it. Like, it just seems like a rule change for the sake of a rule change to me.
And John, I would have thought if you're stupid enough to kick the ball out on the full off a kick-off, well, you deserve to be penalised. I mean, they're sort of lessening the penalty for kicking the ball out on the full here, in a way.
Yeah, we've discussed it during last year in the rounds that we had, this constant short kick dropout that had crept into the game. And that's what they're actually incentivising. That's what they're trying to do. The minor change will incentivise short kickoffs and dropouts. As a fan, I actually don't want to see short kickoffs and dropouts, to be honest. I actually don't like them.
And there's supposed to be... there's sort of supposed to be it's a high-risk play, the short dropout. And it's supposed to be. I mean, It's a line dropout. You're not supposed to get the ball back from that. And if you risk it with a short kickoff, then part of the risk is you could give a penalty away 10 metres out right in front.
Yeah, and lose 2 points.
So they're sort of lessening the penalty for getting a short kickoff wrong.
Yeah.
And should that really be happening?
I don't personally, anecdotally, I don't know, I haven't looked on the internet. And, this came out just before we came into this room to record. So,
moments before.
Maybe we'll be able to get some feedback. Let's check the internet for feedback on it. But I don't personally know any rugby league fan who likes the increase in short dropouts. You know, like we like the occasional one. You know, it's cool when, like, I remember Brett Kamali doing a along the ground kick off. It was cool. One. It was like cool to see, and Bulldogs recovered the ball, and it was like really cool, right? But if there's like very little penalty, you'll see it more and more, and it becomes not a cool thing.
I mean, we were seeing it more and more, even with that the risk of conceding a penalty.
Like
so how much more are we going to see it now?
Like every time, basically. There's not going to be any.
Yeah, because they're not scared of giving the team they're kicking to the ball 10 metres out.
Exactly.
They'll back their defence from 10 metres out to hold out, because you go, well, what's the alternative? The alternative is kick long, and they probably get their first tackle 40 metres out or something. Yeah. So the only difference is, all right, you might have another couple of plays where they're getting back to the line, but you're willing to take that risk of the short kick-off to get the ball back. You're happy to roll the dice on that if the only difference is, well, they start their set 10 metres out compared to 40 metres out.
Yeah, and that's exactly right. A set started from 40 metres out, again, anecdotally, I don't know, I haven't looked at the stats, seems to have more chance of scoring than a set started from 10 metres out, to be honest. Because the goal line defence is so exceptional.
It's so well drilled these days.
And so I really don't like this change. MG this morning was complaining about it. That's why when we got to the office, I had to look it up and see what the hell it was. But I think, we'll have a look at it more on Monday when we have more time. It just seems like another silly NRL. No need to change it. Last year, the 2023 had most ratings, most crowd attendances, blah, 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 blah. Everyone loved it. There was not very many complaints on the internet about the NRL season, and then we're going to make a change anyway. Couldn't go a year without changing.
For every action, there's a reaction, John. It'll create some problem that they haven't foreseen yet.
Yeah. It's just going to create that thing. Anyway, on to our social media blower-uppers. Scott Maxim on the Most Overrated Player video asked what episode was this, wanting to know which episode. So it was episode 29 where we discussed it at length. Actually,
Most Overrated Player.
I had to go look it up. Episode 29. You can also watch the full, just that portion on YouTube on the playlist. It's honestly, guys, just our opinion playlist.
Yes.
Christian Tawano on the Most Overrated Player again said 2 clown emojis with zero experience gibbering utter poo emoji.
Yeah, very constructive, Christian. Yeah. Thanks for your feedback.
Got nothing to say. You're an idiot. Dirty Harry on the West Tigers preview said no prep, don't know what they're talking about.
Yeah, and didn't go into any specifics, John, so just another... Just swipe without going into specifics. So I hope you're happy with yourself, Dirty Harry.
Brett Grady VF4KX responded. He tends to agree. It's pretty poor form to not know Carousel is an Origin player and to suggest he won't be picked when he's the incumbent New South Wales number 9. Had a great season, particularly in the back, I guess he's saying back end of the season with the Tigers. Now, Carousel's not the incumbent New South Wales number 9. He played game 1. We knew he played Origin.
Yes, so can I just clear up? So you asked me if Coruscant was an Origin player, and when we were having the discussion, we were talking about how the Tigers sort of went last year.
Yeah.
So I interpreted your question as asking me if Coruscant had played Origin last year.
Yeah.
You asked me that on the spot. And off the top of my head, without having any notes in front of me, I couldn't remember that he played in Game 1. We later went back and checked that and confirmed that. I think you did ask me that with that intention, John. You didn't ask me, has he ever played Origin?
Yeah.
If your question had been, has he ever played Origin, I would have said, well, yes, he has.
Because I was surprised he played 4 when he only played 1 in...
Yeah, if your question was, has he ever played Origin in his career, I would have said, well, yes, he has. But I interpreted your question, it seems like I rightly interpreted it as, did he play last year? And it turns out he only played 1 game, so forgive me for forgetting that he only played in 1 game. If he had played all 3, I think I would have remembered it.
But Damien Cook is the incumbent. He played games 2 and 3. Yes. And nobody denied that Coruscant had a good season because that was why it was like, he's an Origin player, right? Yeah, he played Origin this year, right? That's the kind of thing, because he had a good season. Damien Cook is the incumbent. Damien Cook, historically, with Brad Fittler, has been the preferred choice. If Brad Fittler was still the State of Origin coach this year, you would have to say that Coruscant is not likely to be picked. in the opening match and Damien Cook was, because that was what the discussion was about, whether Tigers would have a lot of players missing for Origin. Api Coruscant is their main player that would be missing for Origin. If Brad Fittler was still the Origin coach, unlikely, because Damien Cook would probably get the nod. Michael Maguire is now the coach. Who knows what's going to happen? Michael Maguire has said no one is safe.
Yeah, and then he said, and to suggest he won't be picked when he's the incumbent New South Wales number 9, as you've said, he got that wrong. He's not. So and had a great season, I think he means particularly in the back end of the season, as you said, with the Tigers. We never said that Coruscant won't be picked for it. We were rapping Coruscant. Yeah. We said how good he is. We said that their season's going to hinge on him and Buller. So I don't know what podcast he was listening to. It wasn't ours. He might be getting us confused with some other podcast.
But a lot of people just want to spark up. Then Grundy Tiger on the West same video said the boys are a bit confused. I think it was in response to Brett Grady. Bit confused talking about the Coruscant thing, but good seeing having a crack. Tigers are building a good team. Could easily make the 8. Looks like a great competition this year. The Rabbitohs could be in for a disappointing year. They're a bit overrated. Mm-hmm. Brett Grady responded to this. Turn it up. I put money on the Tigers not making the 8. No chance. And be very surprised if Rabbitohs don't win, with the addition of rep-retired Jack Whiten. And then Test 8959 in response said, Rabbitohs will make the 8 provided Latrell stays fit. Now, it's good you guys are having a conversation on the one video. I love it.
Yeah, I think that's a fair point from Test 8959. I think he's right. If Rabbitohs will make the 8 if Latrell stays fit and focused on the job at hand.
And my brother in Christ, Gundy Tiger, it's clear you're a West Tigers fan. Remove your bias a little bit. But, unfortunately, we don't see, neither of us see them making the 8. But, like we keep saying, 2025. All Tigers fans should be thinking 2025. That's all that matters. The General, our number 1 fan, you're a legend. Keep watching, brother. Replied to our response to his comment. Fair point about the scoreline, flattering the Dogs in the 2012 Grand Final.
Thanks, General. Always welcome your feedback. You are one of, if not our most constructive commenter. Yeah, always definitely. Welcome your feedback, and thanks for your support, General, as always. Yeah,
and I really want to hear I think the General is a Dogs supporter. I want to hear your comments on our Dogs breakdown.
Yes.
So Riley O commented a couple of times on the most overrated coach, Cam Ciraldo ? Again, I'm reserving Cameron Ciraldo for this year. I don't know.
I don't think you can say that a coach who's coached for one season is the most overrated coach. That's not fair.
Yeah, especially because, as we've discussed before, and it was publicised, some people said he shouldn't go this year. He should wait. Well, shouldn't have gone last year. He should wait till this year. He is very highly rated as the junior coach, and he was before he went there. He was the most sought-after new coach. So Riley O also commented on how he loves the show and to keep it up. So I love you, Riley O.
Thanks, Riley O.
Keep comments coming, and we'll discuss them. All you people like Christian Tuano and silly guys like that, whatever, man. Like, I don't care.
Yeah, we managed to get reactions out of these people, John. So we've done something right.
So that wraps up our social media blower-uppers for the week. Just another quick shout-out to Riley O and General 92, our number 1 fans. Keep it coming. Happy to have engaging conversations. Don't forget to sign up to SmartB for the tip of the day. The Corporate Box competition expires on the 25th of January, so get in there. Just remember, it's you and 17 mates, so if you enter, go and tell all your mates to enter as well. Because then you've all got more chance to win. Sign up for the Subversion competition to win 2 tickets to Subversion. And the SmartB Racing update will start end of the month, hopefully. Okay. And don't forget to follow SmartB app at SmartB app on all social medias and engage with our social media manager. That's it for the week, and we'll see you all on Monday.
Thanks, John. Go the Aussies at the Aussie Open.
Definitely. Have a good weekend, man. Bye, producer John.